Good night, friends of Life Social. Welcome back to Mr. Massimo Mancini. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Good night. Nowadays we speak about addiction. Can you give us as a psychological explanation of addiction?
Yes, addiction can be defined as a primary chronic disease of the brain that can be results in behavior and action that usually people do under the addiction. And usually this kind of creates an emotional and behavioral shock in first of all in the brain and then in the body. That is a consequence of that. And the needs of a craving substance or behavior, it's strongly related also with the results of a positive or negative attitude towards a different situation in life. And if these things don't happen, usually people can be defined as addicted.
How many types of addiction do exist?
Well, unfortunately, there are many, and with the technology and also internet, they increase the different option for addiction. In the past, we used to have the typical addiction used to be like alcohol, drug addiction, and lately, especially with the older people, medical prescription addiction. People get very addicted also to medications, so they feel like the medication can, solve the problem. Any problem can be solved by medications, and but. Then in the last few days with the intervention of a new technology like internet stuff, we also have all kind of a social addiction related to online pornography, like shopping, online shopping. There's let's see, sex addiction, all this kind of addiction, and also not least food addiction, obviously. And different kind of addiction that can be classified as a behavioral addiction also or substance abuse addiction. So something that could be like also the caffeine can be considered like an addiction.
Really?
So yes, and on emotional level, on psychological level, we have addiction related to, for example, on what's called like a dependence addiction. That usually the people that get...
Everything is possible to classify addiction.
Yes.
If we abuse.
Yes. Usually the amount of desire that we have on a daily basis on this kind of addiction can be the criteria to define that this is an addiction or not. If you like 100 times or 50 times per day, you keep thinking about the same thing, could be defined as an addiction. We don't have to forget that initially the addiction are related to other kind of addiction. For example, if you have like a dependency from alcohol, easily can be a dependency also on sex or drugs, and you can alternate from past the other one.
If you pass through the borderline, then we have addiction.
Yes, if you go over the limits, basically. So if you pass the limits, there's no way to come back. And so, and unfortunately, this can be created by our brain. So the brain is responsible for our change in life, because we change the way we perceive reality. And the problem with addiction, especially if we're talking about the substance addiction, we set the limits, the bar, quite higher. And so in order to get the same results, of the same kind of a feeling of wellness, we need to increase the dosage. Could be the dosage of alcohol, the dose of medication, the dosage of everything. And this creates like a dependency of our body.
So friends, it's not the need about our body, but the need of our pain.
Yes, unfortunately, yes, because this creates some sort of a craving for a substance, for behaviors, or any kind of addiction we develop that can give like the sensation, the perception to feeling good, but just for a while, because it doesn't work, obviously, and still increase the level of tolerance to different products.
So without those abuse, we suffer because...
Yeah, so because our body is craving for that. That's why when we work with addicted personality or addicted people, usually there are different kind of it's a multicultural, multidisciplinary approach to them, because we need to work on a psychological level, on emotional level, also on a physiological level. So first of all, the first one, it's very obvious dependency is on a physiological level, and so we need to clean up the body from any physiological addiction. It could be alcohol. You need to be completely clean. From a drug, you need to clean your body from using drug. The same thing with the medication, and so that's quite difficult. When you're done with the physiological part, then you can start to work on the psychological part and emotional. Because the problem with addiction that usually the emotional part and psychological part, they go together in terms of developing behavior or attitude. Because we need to know that everybody developing like addictive personality, usually tend to be manipulative with others. They tend to manipulate situation in people in order to get what they want. Yeah. If they need, sex, everything they do during the day is in order to get what they want, sex. And the other problem is called a risky factor behavior, is that the kind of behavior they can develop in terms of achieving the goal. And most of the time, they run out of money. So when they run out of money, they can end up like doing all illegal stuff, stealing, tricking people, robbing people, just because they need money to feed their own addiction.
Can we categorize addictions by the age, considering that each age has their own unique perception?
Yes, of life.
Well,
yes, unfortunately, there are no addictions specifically for each age, but we can definitely use categorize in terms of the new addiction coming from internet and stuff. Usually, they are more for teenager. And in my experience, I was working with many teenagers between the age of, I would say, 15 and 25. And the youngest have a very strong addiction from internet, using internet, or social media, all this cell phone, or this mobile phone. And these are biggest issues nowadays of addiction. And there are people that were just a few days ago, I was listening to the radio, there was a mother was complaining because she decided to take the computer of his kid, and his kid killed himself, jumping from the window. Yeah. Because he was so addicted to use the internet, and he's spending so many hours in the computer.
A lot of news.
And unfortunately, the mother was so frustrated for that, because she didn't know what to do. And the kids jumped from the window, and I don't know if he killed himself or not, but it was a very risky behavior for someone with very strong addiction. And unfortunately, nowadays it's been one of those subjects that's been very underestimated in terms of problems. People don't think it's a real problem until they realize that it can be a risky life problem. And people can really end up killing themselves for that. And so we need to be aware that all kind of addiction...
In those cases, where was the responsibility?
Well, the responsibility is these kids this teenager had a lot of social problem, obviously.
Of course.
And most of the time, what the parents do, unfortunately, they use technology or just to keep them busy. Just keep them busy because they are busy doing other stuff. They don't have time to spend with their own children. And so they use this kind of a social technology, or this new technology, as a surrogate for their own time. So they use this to give it, play with the PlayStation, or play with the computer, play with that, so I'm busy doing something else because I don't have time for you. Most important is giving time to those kids. If you give more time, you help them to think about and to understand that develop this kind of addiction is not good for them. No. And they can think about, and they can do something about it other than just, became addicted, like this usually happen in this situation.
Now is a question for you, Doctor. Very important. How can we treat or help people with addictions or their families?
Well, like I said, because addiction is a very particular subject, and we need to have a multidisciplinary approach to them. Like I said, it could be on a psychological level, on a physiological level, and on an emotional level. Obviously, on a physiological level, we need to work with the medication. So we need to work in team with the doctors that help the body to clean up from this kind of a dependency. Let's put it this way. On the second level,
difficult process.
Yes, on the second level, we need to work on a psychological treatment for them. And it's most important also to combine this approach with a lot of nowadays there are new AA meetings. AA stands for Anonymous Alcoholist, but there is also for a drug abuser, for a medication abuser, for food abuser. So we have association for all kind of abusing behavior, And these kind of groups, they can really be very helpful for those people because they can work and they can develop some sort of a sense of understanding because in many people there is this general opinion that only somebody that knows what I'm being through is really fully able to understand my problems. So,
Yes.
and this is like a misconception of reality. But this is good also because it can really help people. So if you have an approach on a three levels, physiological, social level, and a psychological level, you can really help those people to get rid of their own addiction.
First of all, to go to the doctor.
Yes, and then to define the problem, and the first step would be like to accept, acknowledge the fact that we do have a problem. And when you do have a problem, that's the major first step. You can start to do something about it, other than just hide them from the pub or run away or just deny the problem. Like it's so common to
You
do that.
have to recognize
Yes,
if there is a problem.
accepting the problem is the first step to do something about it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It doesn't work like that.
And what are the symptoms of addiction?
Well, the symptom addiction is very obviously. I mean, we need to define because there are different aspects they differentiate from physical addiction from using substance abuse like drug, alcohol. They can create a physical addiction. It means like the people that are craving for a drug or alcohol, they start to shake. Their body really feels a lot of pain. Is in a lot of pain, and so when they do everything to get rid of this pain. But it's different from behavioral addiction because the behavioral addiction they can create some sort of underneath level of anxiety that can be the engine of all kind of frustration that you have in life. Because we do not have to forget that most of the addiction they also have what's called a double diagnosis. In other words, there's a basic of a depression. Not recognized, not acknowledged. There's a basic of anxiety level. There's a basic of frustration could be related also to food problem, food disorder, or also to trauma that they are not be able to overcompensate, or even worse. Also ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder, could be one of the reasons that we develop some sort of addiction. Because we don't have to forget the addiction is like some sort of defense mechanism that our brain develops in order to compensate those situations in which it feels very frustrated, anxious, and angry for something that it doesn't really realize that. And so this addiction it's a sort of like a way out, temporary way out for the situation.
So often we have many complications of addiction. And
the complication of addiction could be also related with the fact that any kind of addiction can act on a different level, on a work level, for example. And at the beginning, especially using those substances, alcohol addiction or drug addiction, you can still be able to work. For example, there was this major scandal that was found out in the United States, where especially in the health system, and the people that used to work, for long shift, like 24-hour shift, 48-hour shift, the people couldn't tolerate the kind of a rhythm of work, and they were taking medication. They were prescribing themselves their own medication. So using drug with medical prescription just to keep doing the work they do because it was too stressful for them. And this can be also a problem. And so we need to be very careful with that. And so when addiction creates a problem on a work level, on a personal level, because all the relationship with the people that have an addiction, they are very complicated. And that's why it's very important to create some sort of a support system for the family, for the friends that are around the people that have addiction, because they need to know what they're dealing with. In other words, they need to know that these people are very manipulative. They are fake most of the time, because anything they do is just in order to get what they need. Could be, like I said, the drug or medication or anything. If you are a kid, they need the money for shopping because you are shopping addicted. And so you keep asking money to your parents or everybody, or you get money from everywhere just because you need to do the shopping thing. So that's complicated because the family needs to know that. When you know how to do it, you know also how to deal with this situation. You need to be very firm and set a very strong boundary with them.
And
otherwise, it will be very complicated because they are very
complicated, difficult to get out.
Yes, because it's so easy that the victim of addiction can play the role of the victim. in many situations. So can try to play the cards of being pitiful for the clients, for the people, for the family. Say, oh, I'm so poor, I'm so sad, I'm so trapped. Can you help me out? And that's so easy as a parent to not fall in the trap of this provocation, because it's a provocation. And most of all, they don't take responsibility for what they do.
It's difficult.
That's why it's very
to
complicated.
say no is,
especially if they are your kids.
Of course, I know.
And they keep asking, asking more and more and more without knowing.
No, is the better word to say when we have problems.
Absolutely. There's a beautiful book that says learn how to say no.
No, yeah.
Also in
like
Italian.
social friends tonight we spoke about addiction. So be careful. Be careful with addiction and get to the doctor when we start to see something
that doesn't work properly.
Exactly.
Especially when it does affect your life. Because like we said before, it's very difficult to have a steady relationship with someone as an addiction, because they are very moody. Their mood goes up and down all the time. They can be tricky. They can steal money from you. They can be very...
You see something that doesn't work right, or we see something strange, go to the doctor.
Be humble and ask for help, because asking for help is the first step to do something about it. Otherwise, it will be impossible to help somebody.
So thank you so much to Mr. Dr. Massimo Mancini.
Thank you so much for letting me come here.
Massimo Mancini, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and have a good night, everybody.
Everybody, say yeah.
Good night.
Thank you so much.